My name is Shan Verma. I'm a jazz pianist and educator here in London. I started playing keyboard instruments from a very early age. I was probably about 8 or so, and then went on to percussion. I played Indian instruments as a kid classically and got to study with some of the greats. I was very lucky to do that, and I found it very inspiring. I would stay behind after school until they'd throw me out, and I would teach myself to play piano. I then went on to study jazz and to fall in love with this music. And ever since, this is over 20 years ago, I've been trying to help other people do the same. Well, I started teaching very early. I would cover classes for other teachers when I was about 13 or so. And I realised the responsibility that was involved very quickly. So nobody really taught me how to teach, except for the students. The students will show you how to teach immediately. And the great thing about teaching is it helps me too. It helps me to break down things I thought I knew about that students need broken down more, or they pull your coat. Hold on, well, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And we don't always think about it, we just play it. So it's helped me to formalize my own thoughts quite a lot. And it's also helped me to see it from the student's perspective. Well, I believe one of the most important skills is to remember how it felt when we didn't know. To remember that feeling. It helps me understand why students have certain difficulties, and they all tend to have about the same difficulties, to be honest. Rhythmic things, speeding up. Some of them find it hard to get into listening to things that will help them. Of course, practice, playing too quickly and tripping up a lot and not slowing down, so the personalities vary a lot. The musical issues are very constant among students. I would say my big purpose is helping people to identify where they are and what to do in order to get to where they'd like to be. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? And it can be. It's just we need the right information to help us plug the gaps in our learning. We need someone to help us practice, and to give us a little kick every now and then, and to encourage us to be consistent, to inspire us. So I hope that I can do that for people in the way that other people have done it for me, and other people still do it for me. And I think it's really important to have that person who's with you and is on their own journey. I haven't finished doing this, I'm a lifelong learner. So hopefully I encourage my students to be lifelong learners too. I did go and study formally, but when I went to university, I arrived not reading a note of music, so they thought I was crazy as hell. Probably got noticed a bit more after the first year or so, and I thought maybe this guy isn't as crazy as we thought. I had a great teacher at university who was a one-to-one teacher with me called Leon Cohen, who is still a great friend, and I admire him a lot. He taught me a lot about jazz and the piano. He's very passionate about technique. If you go to his house, he's got transcriptions all over the place, Ellington, and he's transcribed a lot of Bill Evans and Lester Young. So I learned a lot from him. I've also learned a lot from Dr. Barry Harris, who I've studied with over a 10-year period. Barry played with all the greats from Dizzy to Bird, Miles, Coltrane came for a lesson or two with him, I think. So I've been lucky to have those sorts of people. And I've also, of course, had to make my own study, because I think the best we can do for people is teach them how to become their own teachers. So I've studied a lot on my own. Of course, I've practiced for many years and listened and played with other people. And I think those are the best ways to learn this music, to have someone to help you along your journey if you can, to listen, to play with other people, and to practice. Well, it's been 20 years now that I've been helping other people to study jazz, and Some of those have gone on to teach themselves and become professional musicians and composers. So it really inspires me. But it inspires me whether somebody becomes a professional performer or teacher, or whether they just make their own achievements in their own playing. That's as important to me. It doesn't matter, in a sense. What matters is our own personal journey. My students range from enthusiasts who are just getting into jazz to people who played for many years, or classical piano teachers or concert pianists. Many of those have come for lessons, singers learning to accompany themselves, and other instrumentalists, bass players, trumpet players, you know, so it's quite a broad spectrum. The requirements aren't as musical as they are personal. I think if people have the right attitude to learning and can be patient about doing it and are really committed to it properly, then it tends to work. Well, I think if we can be persistent, even when we don't understand the information, you know, some of this stuff isn't going to just sit because somebody told you. And it might not even make sense when you start practicing it, but the more you go through it, you'll have students report aha moments on a weekly basis. So perseverance with the material. Initiative is a really important one. I think when people are doing their own investigation and listening to music and trying to make things happen in their own playing, that's always a good thing. And commitment, or let me say consistency. I've taught many people who haven't had formal tuition but have tried to play for the last 20 years. And even that consistency makes a big difference. Whether it's a few minutes a day or a few hours a day, it's different for different people. You know, it'd be great if it's a few hours a day. But even if it's a little a day, but it's on a regular basis, it seems to work pretty well. Well, my teaching split up into 4 main areas. One is chord finding. So literally finding the chords of the piano, whether it's at a basic level or a more advanced harmonic level. Playing solos, analysing the musical language itself, which we do at the piano. So understanding the language of chord sequences and composition, because as improvisers we have to compose every time we touch the instrument. And then coaching people through this personal journey, I think, is a really important thing not to underestimate. We can't just give them all these tools and expect them to make sense of it. We have to be there for that part of the journey. Well, every lesson's a bit different. I don't put a book in front of people and say, today is page 1. It's not done like that. We look at what that student is studying at the moment and how I can help them. So it's not a lack of planning, you know, it's not a lack of structure, but it's flexible. And I think it needs to be like that because people have difficulties at different times with different things, you know, and they're free to bring what they're working with as long as we're covering our core skills all the time, as long as they're learning something from it. That's the main thing. They can ask questions. They'll never have too little to do. They'll always have, no students are complaining to me that there's not enough to practice or that they don't know what to do. You know, there's plenty to get on with. And I'm always here to help as well. Yeah, they contact me between lessons and I encourage that if they have questions. And I also have the subscription site, which has a lot of video content for them. And I'll even record things for them sometimes as well that they can take away. We also have workshops here in central London a few times a year. And the students get together and accompany each other because some of them are singers and we have a bass player and a trumpet player. And they transpose tunes into different keys for different singers. We learn about introductions, endings, solo. And there's a great community. They're a really supportive bunch. They welcome the newcomers with open arms. You know, it's really fantastic. That's one of my favourite parts of being here in London. Well, if people are interested in studying with me, then they can try the free lessons that are on the site. And they can also come and see me here in central London or on Skype or try the subscription site. Yeah, they can use the contact page on the website and get in touch, give me a bit of information. I'll do my best to help. So there are lots of ways that people can study and it's just down to them to pick one.